Alrighty, so before I get to the airport and fly my way to Minneapolis, because today is a travel day for me to go there so that I can go to the game between Minnesota United versus the Vancouver Whitecaps tomorrow. I'm going to first do the preview of the Western Conference game, and I do apologize if my voice is a little bit wonky because, yesterday I did win to a high school football game, and safe to say that maybe I got a little bit overboard in terms of cheering for one of the high school that I used to go with. I mean, it was a great game, so you can't blame me for doing that. But either way, in terms of talk about the games that's going to be happening in the Western Conference in terms of Decision Day, well, it's very similar to the Eastern Conference Decision Day preview that I did yesterday, which, by the way, I'll leave a link in the description below if you want to watch that preview. But it's pretty similar in a way that, the playoff race is still up for grabs in the Western Conference, except the interesting thing about the playoff race in the Western Conference is that it's basically a play-in tournament with pretty much all of the teams that is still in the race for the playoffs are basically playing against each other. Home field advantage is definitely still up for grabs, and it's kind of more intense in the Western Conference because technically there are 4 teams that is fighting for that crucial 4th spot for the last spot that you can at least guarantee yourself have one home playoff game in the playoffs. But the only difference is the fact that in the Western Conference, we know who's going to finish top in the West. That is LAFC, and in fact, they pretty much have clinched the Supporters Shield last week when they got that win against the Portland Timbers. But either way, I expect there's going to be chaos in the Western Conference, especially when we're about to talk about that little unofficial playing tournament that we're going to get with those 4 teams playing against each other. Well, not playing against each other, but kind of facing against each other that, if one of those teams are able to get the win, they basically move on to the playoffs. Now, let us begin with the first match, which is Austin FC versus the Colorado Rapids, and I'll start kind of talk about matches that really there isn't a lot to fight for, and this is one of those matchup with Austin 16-7-10 and Colorado 11-9-13. Now, just like what I did yesterday, I'm going to mention the kickoff time and also the start time of these games only once because all of them are going to be same. So in this case, it's a 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific start time, but the actual kickoff for this one, it's 4:18 p.m. But if you have some games that's taking place in the mountain region, it's going to be 3:18. And then, of course, for games that's taking place in the Pacific time zone, it's going to start at 2:18. Now, all-time meeting, both of these teams have 2 wins apiece. And again, the reason why this is kind of a meaningless game is because Austin cannot go higher or lower than second. They've already clinched the second position, and also the Colorado Rapids is already eliminated for playoff contention. So I'm assuming in this game, for Austin, they're probably going to be maybe resting some guys. And also, they will definitely be resting their head coach in this one because Josh Wolf will not be part of this game because I think he picked up enough yellow card accumulation. And again, this is kind of something that is kind of interesting to see, but I feel like it has kind of happened more often where you have head coaches that get suspended because of yellow card accumulation, and that I think it only takes like 3 for a head coach to get enough yellow cards to be suspended for one game because of yellow card accumulation. And that, yeah, again, this is something that is kind of a big surprise when it first came into the league, where coaches can actually get yellow card or even get a red card. But yeah, I think now it's not a big surprise because we've seen it more often than ever before, where some head coaches they maybe kind of gone across the line and maybe give the fourth official too much of an earful, then the center ref will basically give a yellow card to the referee. But as I said, the other thing to talk about in this game is that like what I said about those teams that have already been eliminated. Even though I know there's going to be some players that's already be thinking about the beaches and the golf course in the off season, there's also guys that are still going to try to play hard because they're fighting for not playoffs, but more like just fighting for roster position. Because for those guys that are still kind of like right on the line in terms of maybe making next season's roster, this is the last chance for them to improve to their head coach and hope that they can, of course, be part of next season roster and don't get their contract declined in the end of season roster move. Now, moving on in the next match is FC Dallas versus Sporting KC, and again, this is kind of another game where it's kind of meaningless in some way, though. For Dallas, if they the highest they can go is 3rd place right now, and the lowest is 4th place. and they can remain third with a win or a tie, or the Galaxy lose or tie in their game against the Houston Dynamo, because like I said, they're in third place with a 13-11-9 record, and Sporting KC, just like Colorado, already eliminated from playoff contention, 11-7-15. All-time meeting, it's a 33-14-29 record in favor of Sporting KC. And again, for Sporting KC, like what I said with the Rapids too, there's going to be guys that's going to be playing for their roster, their spot in this one, so they're going to be fighting for those and going to play hard in this game. And in general, Sporting KC have really been playing hard, like ever since I think after when they got eliminated from the U.S. Open Cup semifinal. I mean, you could easily say that this team can just roll over and basically they just call it a season, but that's been the opposite. I mean, they have been one of the hottest team in MLS, and unfortunately, it's kind of doesn't mean that much, because we already knew that they basically dug themselves way too deep of a hole to try and climb out of it. But one thing that they've also done a lot is they are spoiling a lot of teams' playoff chances, and kind of have that mindset that, well, if we're not going to make it, then we're going to take teams with us that is not going to make it to the playoffs. And unfortunately, they're not going to do that in this game for FC Dallas, because as I said, they're already going to make the playoffs and get home field advantage. But I guess maybe they can ruin their chances of finish third, because they've been in third for a long time, and that I mean, even if they finish fourth, they'll get still make it to the playoffs. But depending on if they do get Nashville as the playoff game, if that is going to be a matchup that Dallas had, I don't think that's a favorable matchup for Dallas, especially knowing the fact that Nashville is very, very good at home. And again, that also depends on who, of course, has finished the fifth seed. And the reason why I mentioned Nashville is I'm going to assume Nashville is going to finish fifth place, though. Again, it's so hard to tell when we're about to talk about some home field advantage that is still up for grasp. Which, speaking of which, that's what's one of the next game has some implication in, because the next one is the Houston Dynamo versus the LA Galaxy, and I'm pretty sure Galaxy fans are in huge relief that they clinched their playoff last week, because imagine if they head into this game and they still have playoff hopes that is hanging on the balance. Oh boy, these Galaxy fans are going to be very nervous, because they know the history of them playing against the Houston Dynamo, not only on the road, but also at home, where they have suffered so much heartbreak when they played against this team on decision day. In fact, I even said before the season began, where I think if you're a Galaxy fans and you saw that season release and you saw that your decision day opponent is the Houston Dynamo, yeah, it must have give some of these Dynamo, or not Dynamo, but some of these Galaxy fans a little bit of a PTSD in terms of, the fact that they have to face that team again, and the team that always gave them heartbreak in decision day. Now, in terms of the heartbreak that the Galaxy fans might still get is if they don't get home playoff advantage in this one. Because, in order for them to at least get one home playoff game, all they need to do is get a win. I mean, they're currently sitting in that fourth spot. If they can get a win, then they basically will finish fourth place guaranteed with a 13-8-12 record. Well, by then it will be 14-8-12. Well, the Houston Dynamo, they're already eliminated for playoff contention, but like Sporting KC, they've been playing very hard, and especially ever since they had their interim head coach. And again, I'm not sure if this is a lot to do with the fact that when you get a new head coach, or even a new interim head coach, you get that new interim head coach boost. But it seems like that's what the Houston Dynamo is getting, because they've been playing much better in these last couple of games, and they're going to try to play hard again, because they love to play against the LA Galaxy, especially on the final day of the season, even if they're already eliminated from playoff contention. Now, in terms of the all-time meeting, 15-10-13 in favor of the Galaxy, but recently the Galaxy have struggled to beat the Houston Dynamo, and if they want to have at least one home playoff game, they need to do so, and we'll see if that is going to be the case. Now, moving on in the next match, we got LAFC versus Nashville Sc. So LAFC, as I mentioned, they've already clinched the Supporters Shield with a 21-4-8 record, while Nashville have a 12-11-10 record. And in terms of the all-time meeting, LAFC won the only meeting between both of these teams in near the middle part of the season. Well, for Nashville, in order for them to clinch a home playoff game, they need to, of course, get a win and hope that the Galaxy lose or tie. But like I said, in that game against the Houston Dynamo that Nashville played last week. I don't know if they want home field advantage. Like I know that maybe Garrett Smith are not going to admit it, but he knows that deeply in his mind that yeah, we're gonna just try to purposely lose this game so that way that we can play more road game, because we know that Geodis Park is a place that we have not done very well this season. So why should we just maybe in a kind of single elimination game and put our odds on a place that we have not had a lot of success, instead of putting your odds in terms of places that they've been very successful, which is on the road. So yeah, it's going to be interesting for Nashville, where maybe they'll purposely lose this game again so that they don't, of course, get home field advantage. But obviously, in all seriousness, again, Garrett Smith, he knows that he wants his team to win this game so he can play in front of the home fans. And even Nashville fans will admit it too. I mean, as much as I know Nashville fans will say, I feel like if we have a better shot in terms of going deep in the playoffs, it's going to be on the road instead of playing at home. But they want to give their team a home support. And again, what happened in the regular season doesn't always mean it translate to what happened in the postseason. The postseason is a complete different kind of animal to the regular season. So maybe Nashville might be doing well when they of course playing on or playing at home in the playoffs instead of maybe in the regular season. But either way, it's going to be interesting to see how this game is going to go. And it's also interesting to see what Steve Cherundolo is going to do, because again, they pretty much have nothing to play for, and that ideally you want to rest some guys, but at the same time you don't want to do that too much, because they're not going to be playing in the first round, knowing the fact that they of course got that bye for that first round, and they don't want to fall into the same problem that the New England Revolution had last season, which is last season they won the Supporters Shield and they had like 23 odd days without playing a game, and that really took a huge effect to the team. Now, the good news for LAFC is that they don't have to wait that long to play their first playoff game, but also, since this team, if you include the time that they have off, and if Steve Cherundolo is not going to start his strongest squad, then that's almost on point, around the same amount of time where they put their strongest team to the time when their first playoff game, and that is if they don't put their starters in this one. So it's a big decision that Steve Cherundolo is going to make, because do you rest some guys knowing the fact that you want them to stay fresh and don't they don't suffer an injury in this game, or do you don't do it because you know that it's going to cause rust, and you're going to pretty much have the same problem that New England has last season, with a lot of guys that suffer so much rust because of such a long layoff before their first playoff game. But that being said, I am now going to switch boards and look at the last 3 games to conclude Decision Day 2022 and the last 3 Western Conference game on Decision Day. So moving on, in the next game is the Seattle Sounders versus the San Jose Earthquakes, and this is pretty much the game in the Western Conference where we see both teams have been eliminated from playoff contention, and they're going to be facing off against each other head to head. And I think this is also the second year in a row that the Quakes had that ordeal, because last year I think they played against FC Dallas on the final day, and that game was kind of completely meaningless, and yet I still attended that game, because that game is actually important with the way that was Wando's final game, and that as a Quakes fan, you had to attend that one. You have to attend Wando's final game and one last time to see such a legend basically hang up his boots, and also scoring one last goal in that game against FC Dallas. But unfortunately for this game, that is not going to have the same case, though. We did have that in that last home game when Shea Salinas also decided to hang up his boots and score one last goal for the fan base to cheer about. But in this one, they play against the Seattle Sounders, where, again, it's still very strange to say that the Seattle Sounders are not going to make the playoffs, and it's still just kind of like Sounders to say that this is actually the final game of the season, because this is the first time that this actually does happen, where heading into Decision Day, this is exactly the last game of the season for this team. And it's been a historic bad season for the Sounders, not in the case of what they achieve in the CONCACAF Champions League, because we all know that they of course conquered the mountain of the CONCACAF Champions League. But the old saying, everything has to come with a price, and it seems like the price is the fact that they are not going to make the playoffs this season for the first time in franchise history with a 12-4-17 record, while the Quakes 8-10-5, and all-time meeting, Seattle have a 16-9-14 record over the Quakes, and as I said, both team is eliminated from playoff contention. I mean, for the Quakes, technically, they do have something to play for in a way that if they don't want to finish bottom of the Western Conference, they need to, of course, get a win and hope that Houston do not win their game against the LA Galaxy. But at the same time, I kind of wish the Quakes did finish last in the West, because remember when I made my prediction earlier this season and I said that I predict the Quakes are going to finish dead last in the West? If they do that, oh man, I am going to be a prediction genius. And I know at least I got one of the prediction right, because, I cannot wait to see how bad some of my prediction was. Well, actually, I think there was another prediction that I think I would have got it right, which is I think I predicted the Union to finish first in the Eastern Conference, and here we are. The Union, of course, are in first place, though I probably got the Supporters' Shield one wrong, because I did say that they were going to win the Supporters' Shield, and for a while it looked like that was going to be true, but it seems like that is not going to be the case with LAFC winning it. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see when I do look back at those predictions and how wrong or right I was in some of those prediction video. But other than that, like I said before, with teams that have been eliminated, and as I said in the Eastern Conference prediction race, that between two teams that have already eliminated from playoff contention, that both of these teams need to fight for, especially guys that are right near the edge in terms of maybe making the team next season and not making the team next season, is to try and fight for those roster spot and have one last chance to kind of improve their head coach that they deserve to be part of next season roster. Now, moving on in terms of the next match, and here we go. This is where we start to talk about the unofficial play-in tournament in the Western Conference, because these two games pretty much will decide who is going to make it to the playoffs and who's going to grab those last two spots in the Western Conference. And we start off with the first game that I am attending tomorrow, which is Minnesota United versus the Vancouver Whitecaps. Minnesota has a 13-6-14 record, while Vancouver have 12-7-16. Now, all-time meeting, Minnesota have a 4-3-3 record over the Whitecaps, and for the Loons, all they need to do is win or draw, or simply don't lose in this game against the Vancouver Whitecaps, and they're going to make it to the playoffs. Now, for Vancouver, they need to win. They need to win this game and they make it to the playoffs. But if you would have told Whitecaps fans that was the scenarios that they could have heading into decision day, they absolutely will take it, because I said it before, this team, it looked like their playoff hole was dead and buried a couple of weeks ago, and somehow, in some way, they find themselves in a spot where not only they control their playoff destiny, all they need to do is to get a win in this one. And there could be a good chance to do so, because, like I said, Minnesota, they have been just fall off the map ever since the calendar turned to September. I mean, this team have not won a single game since late August, and I know that this might be the best time to do so, because I'm pretty sure Allianz is going to be really loud, and they're going to have a blackout during that game too, to hopefully generate even more atmosphere and trying to push this team over the edge. But again, I've said this before too, where I do have a kind of a conflict interest in the fact that with how bad the Loons has been down the stretch, and how if there is a way to solve the biggest issue with this team, which is clearly coaching, and also in some part in the front office, do they want to make it to the playoffs? Because if they do make it to the playoffs, front office will basically say, well, we made the playoffs again. It doesn't really matter. We don't need to change anything, because as long as we make the playoffs, it's a good thing. And then you basically get stuck in this wheel of mediocrity for a very long time, which is even worse than, well, I wouldn't say worse, but probably right on point of not making the playoffs. Like, yes, it's great to, of course, make the playoffs every single season and get a chance to win the ultimate prize. But if you're years and years don't make any progress in this, and that's why I mentioned many times, when you get stuck in that mediocrity wheel for a long time, that's not going to help the fan base and the enthusiasm of the team. So yeah, for the Loons, it's a conflict of interest. If they don't make it, then there could be some changes that we could see in the offseason. But if they do make it, probably no changes is going to make. But for Vancouver, that they whatever happens this year, I mean, I know it's been a rough season, and it's been a season that, After what happened when they make the playoffs last season, this does maybe feel like it's a step backwards. But at the same time, when you look at so much adversity that they have to face and just so many injuries that they had to deal with, it's kind of a miracle, the fact that Vancouver is in this spot. And even if they don't make it, I think they should be proud of the season, of the battle that they have to go through for this entire year. But, I don't think Whitecaps fans are going to think about that, because they're going to think that this is a great opportunity with them being red hot in these last couple of games and are on a winning streak. And they have a chance now to go on the road and play against a team that is probably the team that has the least amount of confidence out of any team heading into decision day. Now, moving on in the next match is RSL versus the Portland Timbers. So remember last year when this was also a matchup that looked like it would have decided playoff fate, and that when RSL, of course, lost that game, it looked like their playoff hope was dead and buried, only for them to score a dramatic stoppage time goal against Sporting KC to make it to the playoffs as a 7th seed, and the rest is basically history with them going to the Western Conference. Well, they definitely need some of that magic again in this one. Only this time it has to be a different resort, because they're going to be playing against the Portland Timbers in a game like the one I mentioned is all or nothing, and it's a winner take all kind of situation. RSL have an 11-11-11 record, while the Timbers have an 11-3-9 record. Or actually, no, I'm sorry, not 11-3-9, 11-13-9. Let me just correct that here. Yeah, 11-13-9 record so far this season, because that wouldn't equal 33 if you added that up. This game, unsurprisingly, is on ESPN2, because, like I said, this is kind of like a game that is kind of a winner-take-all kind of game. I mean, you could say that between this one and this one, I'm pretty sure the people at ESPN, they had some tough decision to make, because, this one has some playoff implication too, and same with this one, so which one is it going to be? And they decided that, yeah, why not select the one that RSL is, of course, going to be playing. Now, in terms of the all-time meeting, it is dead even, too. Like, both teams have 13 wins against each other and 9 draws. And the key points coming into this, well, for RSL, they're pretty much in the same situation as the Vancouver Whitecaps. They simply have to win in this one if they want to make it to the playoffs. And for the Portland Timbers, they're in the scenario that Minnesota is in right now, where, as long as they don't lose this game, they'll make it to the playoffs. But, the big question coming into this is the fact that, I think the other thing that's going to be interesting in this one is that neither of these teams aren't really heading into this game with a lot of confidence. I mean, for RSL, as much as, they are the home team in this game, and you would think that the home team should have an advantage, they've been really struggling at home this season. Whereas for the Portland Timbers, we know that this is a team that is built to play on the road. But even then, when you see some of the road games that the Portland Timbers have played this season, it's been absolutely abysmal. So, yeah, something's got to have to give. Like, something's got to give. Somebody is going to have a big game in this one. And when you have a game like this, it only take one big moment or one key player that steps up for both of these teams, and both of these teams definitely have that player. I mean, for the Portland Timbers, it's got to be Sebastian Blanco. For RSL, that could be a little bit of a question mark. I would say maybe Jefferson Savarino, because he has come up with big moment, or even Justin Marin too, because Justin Marin was a key factor in terms of last year when they made it to the playoffs. I mean, I know the goal was scored by Damir Kreilach, but I think it was Justin Marin that, of course, had that bicycle kick assist that give it to Damir Kreilach, who puts it in. So yeah, there could be a hero in this game, and that it's going to be interesting to see who is going to be, and that it's going to be interesting to of course see who of course gets the win and they move on into the playoffs. And also, in terms of looking at these two games, I think, as much as I know there's that phrase of scoreboard watching when decision day come, and you want to see if the result goes right in favor. I don't think in both of these games, neither of these fan bases need to scoreboard watch, because it's pretty clear how you're going to make it to the playoffs. For the home team here and the road team here, you just need to not lose the game and you'll make it to the playoffs. And for the home team here or the away team in this one, they just simply need to win. Like, a loss won't actually help you in the sense that you're going to get eliminated if you're a loss. So I think that maybe is maybe takes a little bit stress out of just have to look at other resort, because you know, on top of you already had to focus on your game, you have to look at other resort and hope it goes the right way. I don't think this is going to be the case in the Western Conference, which at least that makes me a little bit less stressful when I watch this one, but it doesn't help the fact that it's still going to be very stressful, especially with how, again, it's basically a playoff game for both of these teams, or for all four of these teams that playing their matchup. And that's why I also said that it's kind of like an unofficial play in tournament, with the way that, you know, the winner of both of these games is going to move on into the first round proper of the playoffs. But there you have it. That is pretty much it for my preview of all 7 of these games and the last 7 games to wrap up the 2022 regular season. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think of these 7 games? And as I said before in my last video, I will be doing the review of these games after I do the review of the Eastern Conference playoff game, and hopefully my voice won't be similar to this. Most likely it could, because I might be doing a lot of yelling and a lot of cheering, or maybe in some disheartening after I see this one. I'll try my best to stay neutral as possible, even though it could be feeling a little bit disheartening in case if the Loons don't actually get the win to make it to the playoffs on the final day. But let me know in the comments below, what do you think of these games? And again, let me know in the comments your prediction for all 7 of these Western Conference games that's going to be happening on Decision Day. But until then, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.